The Justice Department says the Gauteng crime prevention wardens will have the same legal status as provincial traffic police. Premier Panyaza Lesufi is deploying 6,000 wardens as part of his crime-fighting strategy in the province. Their training was only about 3 months long, which drew criticism from policing experts concerned that this may not be enough.
Conducting a thorough analysis of the applicable legal frameworks, it was determined that for the Gauteng crime prevention wardens to exercise peace officer powers, they must assume the same legal status as the Gauteng provincial traffic officers. Provincial traffic officers currently carry out their duties within the ambit of their peace officer designation, supported by the necessary legal framework. Minister Ramela, having engaged both the Minister of Police and the Premier of Gauteng, thanked all the stakeholders involved for their collaborative and constructive efforts.
Maverick Citizen editor Mark Haywood says it's worrying that the wardens have been given full policing powers despite not being adequately trained.
Crime prevention wardens have undergone training. We know that, but we also know that the training was very ad hoc, that it was insufficient, that it focused heavily on physical exercises and drilling, and that very little of the training equips these men and women with actual policing skills, and yet they have been given full policing powers. And I think that that is the problem. You know, they were trained for 3 months at a resort just outside Pretoria by traffic officers, not by members of the SAPS, and by retired officers from the Department of Correctional Services. So this is the worry, and I think what should be of concern is that the Minister of Justice has now granted these powers without really any substantial qualification. Although they say that they will be put under the management of the Traffic Department, the Gazette itself makes it clear that there's no formal differentiation.
We're now joined by Sizwe Pamla, the Gauteng Premier spokesperson. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon. Perhaps you can tell us more about the Justice Department's legal frameworks, the applicable ones in terms of recognizing the crime wardens.
Well, Premier Panyaza Lesufi has welcomed this development because what it does, it clarifies and answers some of the questions that people have raised with regards to the standing and legitimacy of crime wardens. The reality is that even at a conceptual stage, there was always no confusion that crime wardens are not here to replace SAPS. They are not here to replace anyone. They are a force multiplier. And what led to their appointment is the fact that SAPS and other law enforcement units, they have got dwindling numbers. In the province of Gauteng, the law enforcement to citizen ratio is 1 law enforcement officer for every 546 citizens. Now, that is not sustainable. So as a way of giving support in terms of adding more boots on the ground, the Premier and the Gauteng administration therefore came with the idea of saying, let's have crime wardens who will work with these law enforcement agencies and give them all the necessary support to make sure that they do better when it comes to fighting crime. So this really is the clarification of the confusion, and the Premier welcomes it, and now the energies are going to be focused on ensuring that they finalize their ongoing training and they can be deployed to help fight crime in the province.
So for this festive season, they will not be deployed as yet?
No, you remember the reason why we have always corrected people like Mike who go around saying that they received a 3 months training is that there's theoretical training that people receive in boardrooms or in colleges. And then there's on-field practical training. So crime wardens will be on the street. They've always been on the street because, like any other law enforcement unit, even with SAPS members, once they come out of college, they still have to undergo on-field training where they are taken through all of the theoretical work that they would have learned at a college, now to practically implement that on the street. All of them will be on the street, but that doesn't necessarily mean just because they are on the street, they are not students. They will be on the street. They will be doing exactly what will be expected of them once they finalize their training. So during this festive season, you will see them working with law enforcement agencies in the province. But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they will be on the street, they are no longer being trained. They are still being trained on many areas that involves law enforcement.
Sizwe Pamla speaks for the Gauteng Premier. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.